Hey, it's Father Taylor on a very wintry February 25th with this week's weekly Friday eBlast. So much to cover this week. So I just want to start with the most important thing, and that is what's happening in Europe around the Ukraine. I don't need to go into the details of the little situation or all the stuff that you're seeing already in the news, just here to remind you that as a person who has come to know Jesus Christ, you have a responsibility in this situation, and that is to pray for every person, to pray for Russians, to pray for Ukrainians, but particularly for those people who are most vulnerable in this outbreak of military violence. If you've seen pictures, people's on the train stand waiting to try to get on a train to get out of Kiev. You've seen people, are immigrants, are already moving across the country. When you see that missiles have hit buildings and infrastructure, you know that means people don't have clean water. People may not have any running water. And it's winter. So please, please let every picture and every news story be a reminder to pray for God's intervention and to bring about the least amount of destruction and suffering. And so we're praying for everyone involved. We're praying for Putin. We're praying for Zelensky. We're praying for the folks in Belarus and Moldova and Romania and Poland, Finland, Norway. We're praying for that whole group of people there. We're praying for world leaders everywhere that God would move, that God would move in the hearts of men and women who make these decisions to bring about peace. And so I just ask your consideration that every time you hear this news, as you feel it, make that a prayer to the Lord. All right. Coming up next week, on next Wednesday, is Ash Wednesday. Ash Wednesday, if you think about the Ukraine, is not disconnected. Ash Wednesday, the ashes of Ash Wednesday are a sign of our repentance. And it's not of our repentance like we consider ourselves terrible people. No, we're not putting ashes on our foreheads to remind us that we're not great. Most of us don't need any more reminders of that. What we're being reminding of is that we're being reminded of is that life, that we're mortal, that we've come from the dust, we return to the dust, and we have the life in us as a gift from God. And now we turn back to connect ourselves to the Lord. And during Lent, that period of 40 days between Ash Wednesday and then Easter, we try to make it our intention to figure out, okay, I agree. Some things I got to change. This is the time I can do it. I got 5.5 weeks to be able to do some work with myself, to be able to kind of, okay, what changes do I need to do? What things can I let go of that are not healthy, not helpful? And what kinds of things can I pick up that will help me to be the person God has made me to be, and for our community? And so what you will see in this eBlast and in communications that come is that we have probably given you more things to choose from than is helpful. There is something on virtually every day of the week, and it's some of them, those are in person, and most of them, if they're not, if they're in person, they're also available online. Tuesday nights, you'll see we have these interesting conversations coming up with various leaders in our surrounding community. Why are we having these conversations? We want to hear what's going on in our community. What's happening in Towerville with families after 2 years of COVID? So we got, the principal from the school there. What's happening across town with what does the police chief see happening in Simsbury? What are his concerns, and where does he see things going in our community right now? We've got faith leaders. Clark Poff is the guy that got me into church planting. So I'm really curious, how do you go from church planting, a church where the focus is, how do we reach people who are probably not in church and need to get connected to God? When you focus on that, how do you make that pivot to be a church which still has that as your DNA, reaching people? We have a lot to learn, I think, in that conversation. We also have a lot to learn with reaching people from a missionary that we support. Corey Garrett's going to be there talking about, not so much talking about working in Africa, but talking about the principles of how they work with people in Africa that are applicable to us in reaching people right here in Simsbury. So that should be fascinating. So we have a whole list. That's Tuesday nights, except for the vestry night. We have Tuesday nights all the way through March into April during Lent. You know that we have 8 and 8 prayer, 8 in the morning, we do morning prayer. Usually at 8 at night, we do Compline. This year, as we did last year, we're using the 8 o'clock group is in a way hosting evening prayer online with music. We did this last year. The time will be shifted to 7 o'clock. I believe that's going to be on Wednesdays. So there's something where you can just be at home. It takes about 30 minutes. Talk about a great way. You turn everything off for a minute. You take a deep breath. You get into your little, computer place like I have here. You take some time and you just go through the prayers of evening prayer with music, the music from our choir. So that'll be really great. There's a whole variety of things coming up. There are people from our mission group who right now, their homework is to practice doing small group Bible study, like organize it themselves. And so they're going to be looking for people to join them. It could be an hour, hour and a half, but they're going to be inviting you to come meet them for coffee at some point. Group of 1 or 2 people. Maybe they'll even do some of it online, but the idea is to how do we practice doing a very particular kind of Bible study that we learned from Corey Garrett. And so that's coming up. That's going to be all kinds of different times and days. The deacon, Denise Adessa, and Paula are putting together some kind of evenings of Vespers with prayer, very kind of contemplative, quiet night, about 30, 35, 40 minutes tops of stuff that will be live. We're going to have a couple of those. We have 2 Saturdays that are also scheduled. One of them is kind of like a quiet, reflective time of prayer that's going to be led by Cy Varland, and that's going to be on a Saturday. The dates are included there. I believe that's on March 19th. And I'm going to lead a class which is called, What's an Episcopalian? A lot of you joined the church just because you liked it, and you've never figured out what's the difference between an Episcopalian and a Roman Catholic or an Episcopalian, or what are the distinctives that make something Episcopal/Anglican? Where did we come from? What is it that we really believe? Do we have a confession of faith? Is there some kind of theologian that's been influential? What makes being Episcopalian distinctive among all the other kinds of denominations of Christianity? It can be very interesting. We're going to talk about the prayer book. We're going to talk about history. Talk about the way people understand authority. Talk about the way we read the scriptures. Talk about mission, the whole soup to nuts. This is the class that you should have had if you were joining our church. So some of you will come to this class and just say, hey, I came because how do you become a member? Saturday. We're going to have a Saturday class. I believe that's scheduled for March 26th. And that's just a short morning, 8:30, out by 11:30. It'll be a fascinating time to kind of learn about being Episcopalian and to learn how to get deeper and to knowing Jesus through the tradition that we have. A whole slew of things that are set for Holy Week, but I'm not even going to go that far because we have to get through Ash Wednesday. So take a look. Ash Wednesday, we have an 8 o'clock in the morning at home Ash Wednesday, where you pick up or you send somebody over to the church to help you pick up ashes. And then at 8 o'clock on Ash Wednesday, we'll do morning prayer. We'll have the Ash Wednesday service online. You'll have your ashes. I'll do the blessing. You guys will put the ashes on. You have Ash Wednesday, particularly for people who can't really travel or leave their homes. So you got Ash Wednesday at 8. 12:30, we have an Ash Wednesday service, which is just part of the service with the imposition of ashes. There's really no sermon. There'll be a little word of encouragement. And it's there so you can kind of come in 12:30 and be able to finish that by 1, get back to work. So that's a 12:30 version that's in person. We have a 4:30 version. And that a long time ago, that used to be for families with kids. So we're kind of prioritizing the after school group. But I got to tell you, the first time I did it here, and they said, oh, our afternoon Ash Wednesday is for families with kids. At least for the first 10 minutes of that meeting, the average age was probably 72. So I guess that's what I meant with families with kids. But anyway, we just have services at 8 o'clock. 12:30 in person, 4:30 in person, and then 7 o'clock in the building with that's the full service with communion and music on Ash Wednesday. The Trinity Times is about to come out, and so I wrote an article about the season of Lent. It's not necessarily something that we all do, but we all could, and perhaps we should. What I'd like to be able to encourage you with is Lent is not just based on whatever we offer here as church programs. Lent is based on some things that you decide to do that is best if you do them with a couple of people. If you're just doing your own thing, that's got some merit. But it's like if you're going to become a runner, if you have two other people who are going to come to your house at 7 in the morning to say, come on, let's go, and you're all supporting one another, the success rate of that is much higher. Lent is about making personal change and allowing more room for God in your life. And God in your life means more joy, more love, more awareness, more sense of purpose. It's always good. So as you think about Lent this year, I want you to think about what kind of program would be helpful for me. And if you need a little help in that, I want you to give me a call and I will help you kind of pull that together. And I might even help you to find a couple other people to do it with so that you can go through Lent and have some partnerships about people who also have the same goal of having more of God in their life for during Lent. Okay, that's a whole lot of stuff. It's a little darker out there now. It's like mid-afternoon right here. I'm thinking about places like I got a video from my wife who comes back Sunday, and she was coming down a sliding board. It was about 70 degrees where she was in California. A bunch of you all have gone off to Florida for holidays. Man, I could use like 3 solid days of like 80 degrees in the sun just to kind of get myself reset. But glad to be here, glad to be serving the Lord, and glad to be a part of this community. So God bless you, and we'll talk to you soon.